Right. So, yeah. So caching and transactions. Yeah. Next, we're discussing about the SQL part. Will also be comes under the high-level design part. So to understand about the language perspective, query language, let me explain you. There are different languages will be there when we are working on the application. There are different languages. The first one is called markup language. The first one is called markup language. Markup language is nothing but the example is HTML because hypertext markup language. For example, if you want to create any front pages, right? So if you want to create any kind of login page, right? So or whatever the front page designs we do, for everything generally HTML is being used. HTML full form is hypertext markup language. That is the full form of it. So markup languages are point number one. So next one is about modeling language. Next one about modeling language. Modeling language means UML, means whatever the UML diagrams you can see over here. Okay, so your UML diagrams, right? So these are all comes under the modeling language part. Right? So these are all comes under the modeling language. Means whatever the models you wants to going to create. Because if you see in the previous sessions, we have created some use case diagram sequence means you are modeling the requirements, means you are visualizing the requirements to an extent possible. So if you are a BA, what we are doing, we are preparing use cases in sequence diagrams to model the requirements, But even in the same manner, even the architect team will also use prepare UML diagrams. Because for example, if you remember, when I explained about UML diagrams, I told you there are a lot of diagrams are there. Class diagram, object diagram, component diagram, deployment diagram, okay, state chart, right? So different diagrams I have explained you. But as in when practically speaking, for a business analyst, we have used two. One is about use case, second is the sequence. Because these two are representing the functionalities of the project. So in the same manner, there are other diagrams are being used. Okay, other diagrams. For example, component diagram. Component diagrams means what are the different hardware and software components we are using for the project. Or else, for example, you want to deploy the application. What are the different deployment procedures and standards to be required to follow? That's called deployment diagram. At the same time, class and object diagram. Class and object diagram will explain you what are the different classes we are using in the code. For example, you are writing a code. For example, I will show you 1 minute. Yeah, for example, here is a Java code, for example. For example, here is a Java code. So for example, this is the class file we have used, right? So how many classes we have used? So if you want to know about what is that they do, they prepare some class diagram, like that object diagram. What are the different objects are we going to use? So to explain that, object diagram is being used. So one of the core and important element in context to the modeling language is unified modeling language, means to model some requirements or to model something, not only requirements. To model something, generally there are different diagrams are being used. Being a BA, what we are doing, we are modeling the requirements which are relating to the requirements, use case sequence. These are all requirement related stuff. Because we are a BA, we are focused more on the requirements point of view.
Sorry, Raj.
Not
Yes, quick question. Are you talking about the low-level designs over here or the high-level
I'm talking
design?
about high level design now. Not
Okay, okay,
I'm not going to low level. Again, in low level, you will be knowing well. Okay.
okay.
Because because I'm explaining about what are the different languages are we having, right? In that example, I'm explaining this UML diagrams. Okay, UML nothing but modeling language. Because there is a word called modeling language came when we are interacting. That's the reason why I'm giving this example to you. Do you understood, Tanvir? Clear?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay, right. So languages, I'm talking about languages. I'm not talking about UML because that was done already. Because as part of SQL, because first of all, you want to know about query language, right? So all of a sudden, what is query language? People may have some confusion. So if you want to know about query language, you must be knowing about what are the languages we used in the field of IT applications. That reason only I'm explaining. Okay. So markup languages, one, markup languages means front page designs. Second, modeling language. UML et al. Comes under modeling languages, unified modeling language. Because being a BA, we need to model the requirements. Hence, we are using use case and sequence. For example, there will be a deployment team. Okay, people who deploy the application. For example, if you go back and remember DevOps explanation I have given. DevOps is an environment where deployment will also be taken place. How to deploy? To deploy the application means you have to execute and show to the customer how the application is working and all. So there are some deployment steps and procedures which people have to understand. So for that, what is that we require? We have to create some deployment diagram. We as a deployment team, I'm saying. In the same manner, even architects will also prepare diagrams because the same UML modeling language they use different diagrams they can prepare. Okay, that is one thing. So this is all comes under modeling language. The third one is called programming language. One is markup language. Second is modeling language. Next is programming language. Means programming language means if you want to write a program, you have to provide some instructions to the system. Okay, how can you give instruction to the system to work something to give you the result? This is where programming language come into picture. Programming language means either it can be Java, it can be Kotlin, it can be Python, right? So it can be of any programming language because we have to provide instructions to the system to provide you an output. For example, 1 plus 2 you have given. You should get a result called 3. How do you get this? Because there is a program which was written back of it for adding two numbers. It can be 1 plus 2 or it can be 500 plus 300. But adding two numbers is a logic you have written. If you want to develop a logic or write a logic, there must be some language we have to use. The way how we are interacting. For example, we humans are using an English is one of the language to communicate. In the same manner, if you want to communicate the system, right? So how do you communicate? Because the system is not a human entity, okay? It's a physical system wherein you can see based system should understand the language we are giving. So what kind of language system understands? That's where generally this programming language come into picture. So it can be of any programming language, okay? Because mostly web applications, we go for Java. For a very long time, it was there and successfully. And if you are going for some data analysis based projects and all, people go for Python. Like that, like there are Gosu programming, right? So there are Swift programming, Kotlin, right? So there are a lot of programming, C++, lot of programming languages. This is all we call it as programming language. Next is called query language. Query language, this is the reason, right? So the reason why I'm explaining about all this is because query language. What is query language? For example, uh, you are running an online shopping business. Now you want to know how much sales happened so far today, right? You want to generate a report, or else you want to know how much sales happened between evening 7 to 8 time, right? So between evening 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. or the core business time, maybe from 7 to 10. How much sales happened, you want to know. So you want to generate some reports. From where you will be generating the reports with the existing data which was already stored in your system. You have to store the data first. You need to store the data. From there, wherein being a database team, we have to extract some data. That's where generally query languages comes into picture. That's what we call it as SQL. SQL is a structured query language. It's a query language. It's not programming. Markup languages, HTML and all, modeling language, UML, etc. Programming languages used to develop business logic for a particular functionality. Java, Python, Kotlin, Swift, C++, all that. Query language to extract the data from the system. For example, you want to edit the data, or else if you want to insert the data, or if you want to update the data, or if you want to take some reports for different purposes. For example, banking, for example, banks, right? So bank manages the customer data, right? So whoever taking deposits and all. Now bank want to know customers who are maintaining average $500 in every quarter, right? So they want to know that so that they can encourage other people to maintain the same. Otherwise, there will be some X amount of money will be deducted from the account. It's a premium account. So hence they wants to remind that. For that reason, they wants to know how many people are paying average $500. For example, they want to know. So for that, what is required? They want to generate some queries. They have to generate some queries, right? So this is where this data comes into picture: data manipulation language, data query language, transaction query language, right? So we have TQL, all that, and that I'll explain it. When I start SQL, I'll explain all that to you. So this is where generally SQL comes into picture, right? So SQL and NoSQL is also a database. NoSQL database will be there. But SQL is a query language where if you want to extract the data, generally the SQL, all these things are used here. So at the same time, designing the real life systems, all these things are comes under the high level design. So whatever the examples I have given you means if you're talking about the high level design, if you are an architect team or if you are a technical team, if you want to understand about what are all the things are involved in high level design, these are the things. Architectural designs will be part of it. Distributed systems will be a part of it. Load balancing will be a part of it. Consistency, consistent hashing is important in that. Next, caching files, temporary files to store and what files to be stored and all. You must be having an idea. Next, we must have an idea over the transactions, whatever are we going to maintain. And SQL, we must be, it comes under the high level design part. At the same time, designing real life systems. These are all comes under the high level design of the project. Do remember when there is an architecture, an architect has to prepare, a technical architect has to prepare an architecture, a technical roadmap. First of all, these are all the low level things, high level designs, low level designs. These sort of detailed understanding is needed. This is no way connect to the requirements or the functionalities what we are developing. Those are all in high level wherein you can see to develop the functionalities. These are the technicalities. Architects will create a technical roadmap. For that reason, generally high level designs are important. So once we have identified high level designs, what is required, you need to come up with low level designs. This is where developers will write programming, right? So they have to use how many programs we have to use and what are the different data structures we have to use, what are the algorithms we want to use, okay, what kind of database management system we want to use it, right? So because is it normally a relational database management system we use, because if we want to create a relation between databases and all, relational database management system will be used. So I'll explain database as separate. Okay, there is a separate session for database management system SQL. That time you will be knowing everything. Okay, not here, because we are confining today only for designing part. Okay, so databases and all comes into picture. Next, what is the OOPS? OOPS nothing but object-oriented programming. Means what programming language you are using? Is it Java? Is it Python? Is it C? Is it Swift programming? Is it Kotlin? Is it C++ or C++? This is all comes under OOPS and all. Next, in low-level design, design patterns. Design patterns means, for example, we are writing the code. There are some errors we came, right? So to correct the errors, what is required? You required some design patterns. There are different design patterns we have, some singleton design patterns, all that. So that design patterns will comes under the low-level design part. Even UML diagrams also comes under low level. For example, you are preparing documentation. Okay, documentation is enough for you, right? As a BA. So why you have prepared UML diagrams, all that? That is a low level thing. Am I right? It's a low level. Why? Because detailed explanation about that particular functionality, how it should act or how it should respond. To explain that what you are doing, you are preparing a low level design. Low level design means you are preparing some use case and sequence as a BA. Okay, as a BA, I'm saying. So documentation is enough, right? So documentation is enough. At the same time, creating some epics and user stories on dashboard is enough to you, right? So you don't need to prepare UMLs, all that, right? So you don't need it. Why you are doing again, but still, because this is a low level understanding which you are providing your technical team to understand the functional process, how the process should go on. In the same manner, when you are going to develop a logic for a particular program or a project, right? So you're developing an application, even you need to create the low level part. For example, you ask your deployment team to deploy the application. But what are the deployment procedures to be taken care of? For example, if you want to deploy the application, you must take care of DLL files, because there will be some DLL files it should not miss. Because in programming language, I can say that it's a beauty, but in programming language it is very thing, like for example, you are missing even this comma also, the code won't get executed. For example, you are missing this asterisk symbol, right? So also the code won't get executed. So there is a micro level steps to be taken care of by the technical team all the time. So low level design is always important, because when we are writing a program, even in this comma as well as this semicolon is also matters a lot, right? So if if you are missing that semicolon, your application won't be deployed, won't be executed. So very small minute things will be there when you are deploying any application or a code, which is essentially required. So for that, what is required? So before you are going to deploy, make sure there are some steps to be taken care of, right? So whether do you have enough code or not? Have you written enough code or not, right? So is that everything was on place or not? Then deployment will be done. At the same time, is there any kind of database connectivity was there or not? Because database connectivity using some thin driver, type 1 driver, type 2 drivers, they have to be taken care of. Right, so if there is no database connectivity for the application, what will happen? Accessing of data won't be possible. There won't be any connect. So if there is no data has been accessed, if you want to see as an output, you don't get any output over here. So this is where generally this deployment procedure steps has to be followed. So if you want to have the deployment steps, deployment diagram is being used. So for that, UML are we using? UML is a modeling language. This is used for the modeling purpose. What are all to be modeled? There are lot many things. Requirements can be modeled. Architecture can be modeled. A program or a basic programming, whatever you are writing, can be modeled. Right. So there are a lot of, so different people, different roles will be using, because some people uses programmers will use case class and object diagram used by the programmers. Okay, deployment diagram is being used by the deployment team. System level diagrams are there. System level diagrams will be prepared by the architects. Components diagram. Components, what are the different components and how these components were interrelated. So to explain about the hardware and software components, architects will take care of. Requirement related, like use case sequence diagrams, is being used by the BA. Okay, so UML is a visualized language where it's a low level explanation about the functionalities. What is that are we going to use? This is what, these are all comes under the low level design part, UML design patterns, right? So what are the different schemas they are going to use? At the same time, machine coding. Machine coding means if you want to explain machine level coding, for example, nowadays you are going for artificial intelligence, like machine learning and all. Earlier, there are some assembly level programmings for there. To, for example, if you want to operate a system, if you want to operate a turbine, for example, a lathe machine or a turbine you want to operate. So this is a assembly level programming, assembly level code using C, C++. Earlier, we used to use like Python, Pascal, Fortran, so long backstory. So these are all comes under the machine level code. Machine level code means if you want to operate any machine level things and all, right? So if you want to operate any turbines and all, there are some assembly level programming we want to write. So all these things are comes under the low level design part of the project. So whenever we are talking about the design, so there are high level designs will be as separate, low level designs will be as separate. So when you are talking about the system design, means if you are talking about the from the technical perspective, from architect or a technical perspective, if you want to know about the system design and all, system design, we have to understand in two different directions. One is about high level design as separate, as well as architecture systems, load balancing, etc. Low level designs means data structures, what are the algorithms are we going to use? If there is any errors came in the program and all, what are the different design patterns are we going to use to address the problems, right? So these schema designs, all these things are comes under the low level design part. So in a BA, honestly speaking, directly speaking, you are not the one who is going to design the systems and all. But now and then, because we are working as a business analyst, we never know some kind of technical terminologies, jargons, and how this works, how this acts. This is always needed for us to know nowadays, because that's what we have planned the full stack training program because of this reason. Otherwise, this is all not nowhere related for a BA, honestly speaking. Why full stack? Because of this. Because to know about each and everything about application, about system, we shouldn't confine only for requirements, we shouldn't confine only for requirement gathering, preparing documentation. No. So apart from that, you must be knowing about how the application looks like, how the system designs will be there, what are the different levels are there in the system. How they prepare, that's different story, right? So they'll be doing all that. But end of the day, when you are interacting with multiple people, because we get an opportunity to interact with architects also sometimes. So wherein we should explain things to the architect team. So we should able in a position to explain these things in detail to them. For that reason, this is what something which being a BA, you must be knowing. It's about the system design. And again, we need to know about the high level designs, low level designs. This is all something which you have to be good with. Clear, everyone? Is it clear or not? Bhavik, Gurpreet, Tanvir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
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 Right. So this is all about, and what are the different next session we don't have to on Sunday, Saturday. Saturday I'm not taking session. Saturday I have a personal this thing. I mean tomorrow. Okay. Tomorrow we don't have session. Tomorrow break. Okay. No session. Anyway, I'll post it in the group. I informed to Sudesh also 2 days back. Sunday we have the session. Yeah, so this system design part was done. Next, I will explain about architectures. What are the different architectures we have? Because designs after that architectures, right? So how the application design architecture look like, how the systems architecture looks like, how the data architecture looks like, how the enterprise architecture looks like. So business architecture looks like I've already explained. So the remaining how the application systems architectures looks like, that I'm going to explain in next session. Next session we don't have on Saturday. Okay. Next means tomorrow we don't have the session. I mean my Saturday. We have session again on Sunday. Clear, Bhavik? Gurpreet, Tanvir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. There will be 2 recordings. Today we have 2. Okay. First one and second. Part 1, part 2. I'll mention that way. Okay. Part 1, part 2. So you follow that. Okay. See you. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Fine. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.